Right on, writers, and welcome to the Books by Adrian author platform. I am your host, Adrian Santiago, and this is the Writer's Den, where we interview authors and other creative people and take questions live in the chat from you, the viewing audience. So, welcome. Thank you for coming. If this is your first time with us, please do consider hitting the subscribe button for more good stuff like this. And if you are returning, thank you for coming back. Hit a like on the video. It helps our whole algorithm and stuff like that. This is the Writer's Den, and today's guest is Joe McClelland-Phillips. You may also know her as Joe Writes on YouTube. And she's going to be talking to us about all kinds of good stuff today. So let's not waste any time and let's get on with it. And we will as soon as I push the button. Anybody else grooving during that, or is it just me? All right. Welcome to the chat. Felicia, thank you for being in the door so quickly, so early. Benjamin, brother, hello, welcome. And who is this? Who are you and what are you doing in my chat? Oh, it's today's guest. All right. Whoa, I hit the wrong button. Okay. Today's guest is the host of the Publishing Path podcast. It has 2 episodes already up on her channel and more to come. She has a very, very interesting setup for her podcast that I very much enjoy. And we're going to talk to her all about that today. We're going to talk to her about her writing. We're going to talk to her about all kinds of stuff. And let's bring her out.
I gotta say, my name never looks so cool.
Welcome. Please tell the people at home who you are, where you're from, and what you are currently working on these days. Go.
Oh my goodness. Well, I just started the Publishing Path podcast, which I didn't realize was such a tongue twister when I named it. I just thought it was a cool alliteration. But where I'm from is complicated. But currently, I am standing in New South Wales, Australia. The sun has just come up. My alarm to get out of bed has just gone off. And this morning I was working on applying for some contests because I do advocate that, because while many of my listeners might know this, you may not. I have been trying to get traditionally published for 30 years. And which is why I started the podcast, because I've made a lot of friends along the way who know all about getting published. They're either published authors or industry insiders. And so I'm just sitting down with them and having a chat and how do you get published? So far so good. It's been really I've learned a lot. So hopefully other people will too.
It's good to hear that you're feeling good about it, that you're learning a lot. I hear that so much from folks who are trying to get traditionally published. I've been writing books for 30 years and I'm still trying to get published. I hear it all the time, and it's one of the main reasons why I went self-published, because I was just like, I'm already almost 40. I don't have another 30 years to wait for traditional publish. I'm just gonna go self-publish and get it into stores and just let's hope for the best here.
Yeah,
so I feel you though.
And I admire that.
And I admire what you're
doing. I do admire it.
traditionally published is still a certain badge of honor. Even for me, it would be if they back the truck of money up onto my lawn tomorrow, I would sign. But
Yeah,
it's I
podcast,
get it.
there's no truck of money. There's no truck of
No,
money.
no,
Sorry.
no truck of
So
money.
no. That's one thing that's really what I'm learning is just how like I'm talking to not just traditionally published authors, but also hybrid authors. I don't think I've yet had anyone who's solely self-published, but there's a few people I'm talking to about it. But coming up in a future episode, Emma Bennett, who you might know on this channel, she's hybrid, and so we talk about how she went from self-publishing to more traditionally published.
Hmm.
But basically, doesn't matter what you do, no truck of money, no truck of money. I recently actually not this week, but next week, the author, I talked to him on launch day, and he went before he talked to me, he went to the bookstore to buy his book because it was out and it was like so exciting. He's traditionally published, and they weren't on the shelf, and they were in the back, and it was kind of a confronting
Deflating.
experience to go like
Yeah.
it's launch day and my book isn't even on the shelf. I had to
Right.
ask for it. Like,
Yikes.
so you think it's gonna be, he said, you think it's gonna be a like this amazing experience, but it's just like any other day.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
yeah. And the same is true for self-published authors. There was this whole like roller coaster of emotions leading up to publishing day, and then afterwards you're like, okay, it's
Next
it's out
thing.
now. Yeah, you
On to
start
the
writing the
next.
next one now, I guess. Like, yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now you mentioned signing up for contests and stuff like that. Is that
Mm.
what you were doing a second ago for the stories? Like, what kind of contests were you signing up for?
So traditionally I've always submitted to short story contests, but this year I submitted to a novel contest for the first time, and I actually wrote the novel, or I started writing the novel in NaNoWriMo last year.
Mm.
So those of you who have been on my channel, it was my Cinderella story, and I edited it. I hate that word.
I know
Um,
it's so hard to say.
and I collaborated with Emma Bennett on that. She was my editor, and she was fantastic.
She's good
And
people, though.
then she's such good people. And then I submitted to the Banjo Prize, which is a prize through HarperCollins here in Australia. And I decided I'd always written science fiction, except for that first novel that I submitted 30 years ago. Since then, I always did science fiction and fantasy. Dived into a little nonfiction for a moment, but we don't talk about that time in my life. And then I just said, I'm going to try a contemporary novel because I'm blocking myself. There are all these publishers that aren't looking for fantasy, aren't looking for YA. And I'm like, I'm going to try it. Like, and I actually am playing in that space and I really love it. It's super fun. Not to say that I don't still have fantasy and science fiction, but I'm just playing. And so what I'm writing right now is also one. And yeah, I was talking to the winner of a past, like who won this prize a few years ago, Danuka McKenzie, and she's now working on book 3 in her series. And she's a crime novelist. And she's like, beforehand, I was just submitting constantly. And I went, you know what? I miss submitting because I haven't been doing it in a while. So I thought, I'm going to do this. But instead of trying to get, like over the time, and people have said things like, you need to get published in short stories, and you get published in short stories, you build a resume, and then you get, then you get published. I don't think that's true anymore, which is kind of why I got off the wheel. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get back on, but at this time, I'm just gonna shop around the novel, but I'm going to shop it around at contests instead of the slush pile. Because in a contest, you're guaranteed getting read. Like, they're going to read it. Whereas in the slush pile, you're not really guaranteed it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I recently entered my novel into a sci-fi novel contest and immediately started panicking after pushing the button. But, it's just one of those things that I wanted to try out. And you're right. It's not like there's no one way to do anything anymore, especially being an author and publishing books. Like there's so many different avenues that you can go down that lead to the same place just by different routes. And so, yeah, if one route is not working for you, there's no rule book that says you got to keep doing it. You can switch things up, try something else, go a different route.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was the hypothesis of the podcast, was that there are as many ways to get published as there are authors. That was my hypothesis. So I have done about a dozen interviews now, even though there's only 2 live. And because I wanted to see if I was right before I started publishing them, and they go, oh, you know what? Everybody's saying the same thing. This is actually really boring.
Yeah.
But what I'm realizing is it's not true at all. What is true is that there are probably as many ways or more to get published as there are books. Not just authors, but books. Because I'm talking to authors who have multiple books, and each book has had a different story, not just the author themselves. And that was kind of a real, I think, if you had asked me, I never would have said it out loud because I'm a grown-up. But I think me inside thought, you get published and then you're with a publishing house and you get more published and more published and more published, and before you know it, you're Margaret Atwood or Stephen King, and they're like, they'll publish anything you write, and that is not true at all. And I don't even think it's true for no, and I don't think it's true for self-published authors either, because you've built an audience and they trust your book and they trust what you guys. And if you just suddenly switch genre,
unless it's something you established from the beginning. Yeah. Like you have to prepare them for all that stuff.
It's like you have to start all over again.
Yeah, you might have to go pen names, to form a completely separate audience for it, like whatever it is. Yeah, again, so many different ways to do it. Okay, let's get into you a little bit. Here we go. Okay, let's talk origins. Where you're originally from, when you started writing, and why you started writing.
Okay, well, I was born in a place that apparently no longer exists, called North York. It was swallowed up by Toronto. Try and get citizenship in another country when your passport and your birth certificate don't match. I got the feds came after me, like, this place doesn't exist, and I'm like, it does exist. It got swallowed by Toronto. I can't be the only person who has ever wanted Australian citizenship who was born in North York Hospital when it was called North York and not called Toronto.
Did you get stuck in the airport like that movie Terminal?
No, they called me at home in my mother's bedroom, so I was pretty safe. So
can't think of a safer place.
I was staying with mom and dad like a loser, waiting for the paperwork to come through.
That's what
but I was extremely emotional and very pregnant, so it was still not fun.
The plot thickens. This story is juicy. The plot keeps thickening. This is a novel by itself.
Oh yeah, nonfiction, not for me. I'm too verbose for nonfiction. Nonfiction, you need to be a little more concise. I would not be good at editing myself, as you may notice, the answers to these questions. But but yeah, so then I spent most of my childhood in Ontario. I did uni in North Carolina, which most of your listeners may know is part of the United States, which is why
Yeah.
occasionally I come out with a y'all.
I clocked that earlier. You said y'all earlier, and I was like, wait a
Yeah,
minute, where is she
I
from?
did. I randomly speak French, and I randomly say y'all, and I also randomly change up my vowel sounds. I caught myself doing that the other day. I say tomato instead of tomato, but my husband thinks it's hilarious
You're
because
the one person that says tomato instead of tomato.
no, everyone in Australia does.
We found
Everybody in
that.
Australia does. What's hilarious is they say potato and
They don't say
tomato.
potato. They don't say
Like they
potato.
can't decide on the sound of the word. But I've been in Australia now 11 years. So this month marks my 1-year anniversary of being a citizen. It's a long journey. It's almost as long
You're
as
a
getting
straight up
published.
Australian now. That's
Yeah,
pretty
so I have
cool.
dual citizenship. Yeah, which is
Pretty cool.
hilarious because when I was a teen and heading down south to uni, I wanted dual citizenship. I had cousins who were dual citizens, and I really wanted it. And I chased it up a little while. My father was born in Ireland, so I chased up Euro citizenship for a while, a British citizenship for a while. But I never really hardcore chased it up. And then I got here and I'm like, I really want dual citizenship. So I'm getting it. I don't know why. It's just like a little bucket list thing.
Yeah.
But I love it because when I first came, I was not a resident yet. And I was not a resident of Canada. So I couldn't vote in Canada because at the time you had to be living in Canada to vote. And I couldn't vote in Australia because I wasn't a citizen.
You were a woman
And
without a country.
it was very hard. It really made me appreciate the vote. So there was a legit reason why I got citizenship, was because I wanted to vote, basically. But also I couldn't apply for any grants or any or a lot of contests or a lot of awards, because in Canada, again, I had to be a resident. And here, once I was a resident, sometimes they wanted you to be a citizen. So I felt like a person without a country. It was very lonely. Do I write in an Australian dialogue? That is a very good question. That is a good one. I like that. So I set my novels in Australia, my contemporary, and actually I was telling a friend yesterday that my fantasy novels, although they are otherworldly, and there's a lot of going down the rabbit hole to the other world, sometimes literally, because I'm an Alice in Wonderland fan, but they always kind of start in my small town of Lithgow, New South Wales. I actually live in Hartley, which is Lithgow is one of these collective of valleys. It's sort of down as the Blue Mountains, and it kind of goes down into the central west, and then Lithgow kind of spreads out from there. So there are all these different little communities that make up the 7 valleys, as they say, of Lithgow. Lithgow is the big town center. We have 2 grocery stores.
Quit showing off.
Amazing. Actually, there might be 3. There might be 3 now. But yeah, and I think we even have a sushi place. But growing up in Toronto, obviously, I'm used to a little bit of a bigger community. Hey, Self Puff Andy. Yeah, I saw your congrats on the 10 years. I saw your live with Emma and Margaret. Congrats on the 10 years published.
I'm gonna have to catch the replay. 10 years published.
Oh no, it was pretty funny. They kept asking each other some crazy questions. Um, yeah, good job.
Yes, please do hit that like button with a sledgehammer.
Throw a book at the like button, as Andy says.
Yeah, I like it. Projectile books.
Yeah. So, but I try not to like Australians. Like, I think I definitely did. Like, I grew up on Crocodile Dundee and that sort of stuff. And so you think Australians talk like Mick Dundee from that, and but
McClelland.
they don't. I mean, there's the odd kind of like real country hick, but that is a very, very like stereotypical. I think the equivalent would be like a redneck in the United States, like a real kind of twangy. They don't talk like that. They mostly talk like Nicole Kidman, which
Okay, I know exactly what
sometimes
you
you
mean.
can't even. Yeah. So, but I do sort of take care. So my since 2014, I've been here since 2012, but since 2014, I've written a novel a year. And the first one, the one I wrote in 2014, I gave to some Aussie friends to read, and they kind of went, "You can't say this." So I had a character that like I had a very prolific like break the fourth wall narrator, and said, "Oh, we're all rooting for Ginny. We're all rooting for Ginny," and they were like, "You can't say that. You can't say that." I'm like, "Why?" Like, it's like you're cheering for her. It's like, "Yeah, you're rooting for her because that's what it means in Canada. It means sex here." Like, it's like, no.
Yeah, the
And
whole dialects being different thing.
yeah.
That's the
So
thing.
one thing that I have learned is that almost every single expression that I was taught in the play yard as a child, that is something really like quintessentially, either North American or Canadian, means sex here. It was like everything means sex. It's like, golly, they've
Okay.
got dirty minds, Australians. So so in that I've had to really, really, check my words and check my tone and sort of adopt their slang instead of
Yeah.
my own. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
not
an
so much a
adjustment.
good day, not so much a good day, mate.
Not
How's
so much
that?
of that. How has
Mm-mm.
living in Australia changed or enhanced your writing?
Oh, so much. Golly. So um when I met my husband Paul, I had a magazine, and which is how I met him. And because he was promoting it. He has a bookshop here in Lithgow. And he was promoting it and all that kind of stuff. And I was also doing a lot of freelance writing at the time, a lot of articles and stuff. And so he became my editor, which was great because I'm dyslexic. So it's good to have a proofreader when you're dyslexic. This is pre-Grammarly, remember? Back in
Even
2012.
with Grammarly, it's still
And
good to have a proofreader.
yeah, no, for sure. And then, but because he had a bookshop, he was able to introduce me to authors. So one of the people that I interview coming up, it's going to be a few weeks away, but her name's Kim Kelly. She's another hybrid writer. Started off traditionally published, moved to self-published, which I don't like calling self-published anymore. I want to call it indie because I spoke to an indie
Yeah.
author, and he was like, "No, let's call it indie," because like if you make I'm going to totally go off on a tangent here, but if you make a record in your garage or your basement, if you and then you publish that and you put that out, then you're an indie musician. So why are we saying self-published? Like, it feels like why are we saying indie? Anyway, off my soapbox.
Indie sounds
But
better. It sounds more professional.
it does, and I think it you're when I was talking to one of the publishers I was speaking to, who's worked for Macmillan and Simon and Schuster and Random House and Penguin. She has a huge career in publishing, and she even opened her own publishing house for a while. She said that, like, she kind of opened the door and really, her name's Lou Johnson. Watch out for that because that's really cool. But she kind of like told me all the different jobs and all the people that work on a book, and I'm like, whoa. Like, it really kind of like makes you think about the person who's just doing it solo, because there's like a dozen people that work on a book. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what
it's
it felt
insane.
like putting out a book myself. It felt like I had 12
Yeah,
different jobs. And yeah, and I mean,
you
I'm
do.
probably sound like a broken record to my audience, but we talk about that all the time on this channel about how when you're a self-published or an indie author, you don't have one job, you have 12 jobs, you have 19 jobs. You know, you got to know about marketing, and you got to know about formatting, and you got to know about editing, and you got to know like it's all in there, you know. It's wild.
Yeah. So it enhanced my writing, which was the question, by introducing me um to all sorts of different people. And it also changed the what I write about. So before I came to Australia, golly, um I was I was writing very dark, gritty, otherworld science fiction, fantasy. Um, I kind of created a world that was. I may go back to this world one day because it was a really cool world. The novels were bad because they were my learning novels, but they were very dark, very gritty. The world was very, I think, well developed, but very city. But it's really hard to kind of differentiate how much of this is living in the country, because I in Canada, and even to an extent in the States, I lived in cities. But when I came to Australia, like, I'm in proper country. My neighbors are cows and sheep. Like, I'm in proper country. Looking at my window, I could even show you. uh, just
Yeah.
field.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing out
Literally
there.
just grass.
Yeah, there's
No, there's
nothing
nothing out
going
there.
on out there.
And there's nothing for a while. It takes me half an hour to drive to the small town of Lithgow, where the bookshop is. So it really opened up my setting and the way I write. Like, now I really describe sounds and smells and like the way things feel much more. Now, whether I would have developed that way or not, I don't know. But it's very, yeah. So whether that's just living in the country, or because people used to ask me that, they don't ask me anymore. But when I first came here, it's like, how's it different? How's it different? I'm like, well, you're asking me to compare Toronto with
The
Lithgow,
Outback.
which is like, which is a country, little country town. So I can tell you that I love Toronto. I lived in Vancouver. I love Vancouver. I lived in Greensboro and Raleigh, North Carolina. Loved both of those. I hate Sydney. Absolutely
Yeah.
hate Sydney. Uh, so, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I love Australia, but Sydney is a horrible city. And I realized that in
I'm not
Canada,
a
our
big fan of
cities
big
are just
cities
like,
like that.
no, but like Toronto and Vancouver are just like villages kind of smashed up against each other. Like, when I lived in Vancouver, people would say, where do you live? And I'd say Vancouver, down, and they say where, and I'm like, downtown, and they're like, no, like, where, because they're looking for like the street name. They're looking
Yeah.
for the like the little like
What
colloquial
area? Yeah.
term that means this little area. And I'm like, no, like, seriously, I live like next to the art gallery. Oh, you really do live downtown? I'm like, yeah. Like, so I like lived in this like one tiny block that was actually like didn't have a name. Like, I was that downtown. But it was pretty funny because like, no, like, where do you live?
I'm from Buffalo, New
But
York,
in
so
like,
I was very
yeah,
close to Toronto up there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But Toronto,
Niagara
it's
Falls.
Chinatown, Little Italy, Kensington Market, the Danforth. Like, it's you don't say Toronto,
Yeah.
or
What
North
about
York.
now that you're in Australia? What about the famed toilet spider? Do you have that giant toilet spider?
It's not a toilet spider. I don't know what
Have you
that's
named
about.
him? Have what's his name?
So you're talking about huntsmen. You're talking about huntsmen. They, I've not seen them bigger than my hand, but I have seen them that big. So
That's
the
pretty big.
body, legs.
It's big enough for me.
They, but they are actually their mouths are too small to bite you. And they are called the huntsman because they eat other spiders. So we let them stay in the house. We like them. So my daughter names them. So we have, I haven't seen him in a while, so he may have moved on, but we had a little one called Leggy. So he wasn't that big at all. He was maybe about that big. And he only had 7 legs. I don't know what happened to the other one. I had nothing to do with it. But so he was Leggy, but we've had Stripey, Rosie, yeah, she names them all. You get
Ev-
in big
Every
trouble
time,
if you spider in
every
my
time
house.
I've
My daughter
ever
loves.
asked, every time I've ever asked an Australian about the spider thing, I'm always
Mhm.
expecting them to say, "Oh, you know, everybody talks. It's just a myth. It's not really that bad. Nobody, we don't really have them that." But no, every single
Yeah.
Australian is like, "No, they're huge and they're in the house, and we let them." Every single one. Like, yeah, yeah, it's
So,
cool. Like,
because
what?
there are some dangerous spiders here. They're not big, but they're really dangerous. So when I first came, you talking about the bathroom spider, I had a toothpaste spider. So on my toothpaste was this little redback, which is actually, as far as poisonous spiders go, is actually pretty tame. Named redback because of redback. One thing you should know about Australians is they would suck at world building because everything, and this has probably influenced my world building because everything is very prosaic. So you think about it's the Opera House, the Harbor Bridge, like everything is just that's what it is. Like they don't have fancy names for stuff. So anyway, the redback is a spider with red back. And it was on my toothpaste, and I had to get my stepdaughter to come and get rid of it because I was pretty scared. Now, now I'm the spider person, but I wasn't when I first started here. But yeah, no, there's some really really dangerous ones. But the snakes are worse. So we had
I don't want to talk about
a red
snakes.
belly snake. So that's a snake with a red belly. You can see how they're very inventive with their names.
Yeah,
And
I'm
it
seeing a
was
pattern.
my daughter, she was 3. She came in from the yard and said, "There's a snake in the yard." And we went and looked, and yes, sure enough, there was. And so we got a snake wrangler to come get it. And the snake wrangler was probably a good, this much taller than me. He held up his arm like this, and the snake was literally that big round in the middle and dragged down, head in the grass, tail in the grass. So it was twice that long. And he's trying to get the snake in a bag, and we're all hiding in the house watching because we weren't going out there. But yeah, and that again was as far as snakes go is not a bad one. It'll make you sick, but a brown snake will kill you one bite.
And that's even more reasons why Australians would not make good world builders. Not only is everything named obviously, but everything can kill you. Like just there's nothing is okay. Everything can murder you. That's the whole world.
When my first night, Jess, Paul's oldest, and Paul sat me down and showed me a YouTube video. It's probably still out here. It was these guys had made a song called "Come to Australia, You Might Accidentally Get Killed," and they list all the stuff that can kill you in Australia. that was my, and I'm jet lagged watching this video. I'm like, okay, fantastic.
That's wild. That is just wild. Okay, let's talk about your past writings. You said that you, for at least a while, I don't know if you're still doing it, were writing a novel a year. Uh, Now, you've also mentioned that you have been trying to get traditionally published for years as well. What kinds of stories are these? What kinds of books are you writing? What can people expect to find in the pages of a Joe book? And
Well,
yeah,
golly. So like I said, last year I tried for the first time to write a contemporary romance. And that was totally strategic because I was frustrated with the fact that so the novel I wrote in 2014 is called The Thing of the Stuff. It's a fantasy YA novel. Um and it was sort of it is extremely tongue in cheek, hopefully in a Pratchett-esque kind of style, or maybe more Douglas Adams, but for fantasy. And it's about um, a dyslexic trans preteen who ends up being the chosen one against their will in in a magical world where they have been tasked with finding the thing of the stuff, which nobody remembers what it is, where it is, or why they need to get it. But it's extremely important. And it's very much making fun of, at the time, every single fantasy novel out there was always the thing of the stuff. And I mean, it goes back to like the Lord of the Rings, but it was like, the Game of Thrones, it was all the thing of the stuff. And I'm like, okay, so I just kind of decided to really, really make fun of it. And everybody in the novel had a disability. I'm doing you're not. This is people can see me. I used to do this on my podcast, and like I'm doing this, and no one can see me. Well, they can on YouTube, but not necessarily on Spotify. But so I've got a girl with a backwards arm. She's a lot of fun. Her name's Jay, and an overly tall dwarf. I've got a fairy, a fairy who has Tourette's, which aside from swearing in fairy, she her wings randomly disappear, which is quite humorous because she falls out of the sky a lot, and she's very angry. And one of her tics is her arm goes flying around like she's swatting flies, and so she's constantly hitting people. And I tried to name her, and she would not take a name, so she's just the fairy. And
this sounds really good.
And so that was looked at by Random House, A&U, and more recently by Walden Books. And all of them like different aspects of it. Predominantly, when I first started, I hadn't really nailed down my voice, but I tend to have a very meta, tongue-in-cheek, talk, like break the fourth wall kind of narrator. And in The Thing of the Stuff, it's very prominent, so it was a little polarizing at first, but I think I've kind of narrowed that down. But anyway, they love the narrator, they love the characters, they love the premise, but it's just not quite right for whatever reason. And which puts me in about a 1% tile, like for people trying to get traditionally published. A lot of people don't get that kind of lovely personalized feedback. Walden Books actually gave me like, you could probably do this and this and this. And I was like, if I do that, will you, reconsider? And she said, yes. I still haven't heard back. That was a year ago, so probably not, unfortunately. There's a video on my channel actually about the different kinds of rejection. The worst kind of rejection is when you get no answer. I would take a form letter any day.
Yeah. At least it's something, it's closure, having that wound out there somewhere. It's a whole thing. Yeah. What are you writing now?
Sorry, go ahead. So right now, so between that and right now, I'm writing a sort of mashup of genre, which I love mashing up genre. So it's a romantic comedy,
in the right place,
but it's good company. sort of a whodunit, except instead of who who got killed. It's who cheated. So I've been inspired a lot by YouTube. So it's sort of a social media post is my inciting incident, where the narrator, who is again breaks the fourth wall, she declares that she has left the small town where she lives with one of her friend's husbands. And then they go into a valley here where there's no mobile signal at all for the day. And they have no mobile signal, and they can't find out which one of their husbands has run off with this woman. So then the three characters spend the day stressing. And then it's kind of told through backstory of why they think they're
I'm picking
their
up on a
husbands might
lot
have
of
left them.
a healthy dose of humor in even in your premise.
Yeah, very
You know, and
much,
the
very
premise
much.
itself is
So
very humorous. Yeah, like that's all.
yeah, yeah. So they spend the day on a train, which is based on a tourist attraction here called Zigzag. This novel is the first time I am trying not to name locations. I'm exploring that. So the Cinderella story, I call out Lithgow quite a bit. But in this one, I thought I'm gonna try and I even changed the name of so I've created my own social media platform. Maybe that's a barrier for publishers, me having naming things. Maybe if I make it more fictional, and it's not a real place, it's not it's obviously to me it's obvious, but it might not be obvious to all the readers. Maybe that's more accessible. I don't know. I'm just playing. This is writing's play.
That's what we got to do. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So I was recently at Verona, which is a writer's house here, and so I was on an invited residency, so you get to go there. There were 5 other writers in the house, and they'll feed you, and you just write for a week. So I spent the week writing, and it was fantastic. And my goal was to get a 0 draft of this book, which I did. So for a 0 draft for me, I'm defining that as just a dry run. And if I get stuck, I just write TK, which is an editor term meaning skip, come back to it, to come. So it's spelt wrong on purpose. Most editing terms are spelt wrong on purpose, so you don't think they're part of the manuscript. But anyway, so I got down 40,000 words, which is not a full novel, but it was the framework of a full novel.
Damn close. Yeah, that's a big chunk right there.
Yeah, so now I'm filling in all those scenes that I skipped, which is not new. It takes a lot longer. So when you are writing a first draft, I can understand why you can't write that quickly, because I've been working on this one scene, which is a primary conflict for why one of the wives thinks that her husband has left, and the navigating the conflict of this scene is just, I've been working on it for about a week and a half. So going from writing 40,000 words in a week to spending a week and a half on maybe 2,000 is, yeah. Have you ever co-written a book?
Actually,
I skipped a question.
Yeah, let me
Sorry.
do this one. No, it's no problem. Where can I get a copy of the story with all the characters with disabilities? That sounds hysterical and like something I would love to read. And this, I guess, dovetails nicely into the question of, do you have a plan for the stories that you have shopped around and have not been published? Would you consider self-publishing those yourself so that folks can read these books?
So the thing of the stuff, I feel like it's done. I feel like it's maybe a little experimental for, it's sort of, I wrote it as a YA fantasy. There's a lot of characters, and I deliberately didn't put a romance in it, which is kind of funny considering I'm writing romance now. But like the Cinderella story is an asexual romance, so it's a romance without really being a romance.
Interesting.
And this is sort of a, this is a whodunit romance that I'm writing now. I am asexual, so the idea of just writing a clear-cut romance doesn't really interest me. It's not what I read. So when I wrote Thing with Stuff, there was no romance in it, and there is no romance in it, which makes it maybe make it a hard sell, because I feel like that's what every book kind of wants. And it also might be that it's sort of maybe more middle grade because of that, but it's definitely too hard for a middle grader to read. It's definitely on the like high end of like an YA. It's very long. So it may be too experimental for traditional publishing.
A little
So
too niche, right? Like you would have to
I know.
get like,
Well,
let's be
yeah,
specific with
it's
who your
maybe a
audience is.
little, yeah. There's nothing really. I mean, like I've compared it quite, arrogantly to Douglas Adams and Pratchett. But in a way, I enjoy that, because before So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, there was no romance in there's no real romance in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And if you've read So Long and Thanks for the Fish, he calls that out. Like, Douglas Adams definitely calls that out, and Arthur finally gets some. But in quite humorous Douglas Adams way. But Pratchett's a little bit the same in that. So I don't know. I feel like I need a larger platform. So I suppose I would say, Jennifer, quite strategically, go like my channel, watch my videos. If I've got a large audience, then I would feel comfortable. But I'm still growing my YouTube channel, and until I've got an audience base that I know are going to support me and buy the book, I don't think I'm brave enough to put a book out there. Because as an unknown author, I feel that I don't have the marketing. Although I have a background in marketing, I don't think I would take a risk on me without a lot more capital than I currently have. So either I need more money or more followers, I suppose, is my answer to that.
I'll have a follow up to that whole answer in a little bit, because I have a follow up in a little bit. Let's go ahead and get to
Okay.
Felicia's other question here. Have you ever co-written a book? If not, would you ever consider it?
I have had a go. My husband and I tried once. I tried with a friend a couple of times, 2 different friends. So up until, if you've watched my channel, up until very recently, up until the start of my channel, I was a dedicated and quite determined pantser and would not plot. I would just start with kind of an idea in my head, and then I'd start writing, and then I would go to like the nearest person, like, give me a name, and my character needs a name, and then that would be my character's name, and I would just like keep going. Which is how The Thing with Stuff was written. Was very much but it and another novel that was sort of a Alice in Wonderland fan fiction-ish kind of thing that I wrote between that and what I'm written a book a year, right? So anyway, that was I started it, and then I like stopped, and then I started again. Like Tolkien's once been described as writing, and then he gets a little stuck, and then he doesn't edit or anything, he just starts all over again. And I was doing that, and it was exhausting. And while I was writing a book a year, I wasn't necessarily polishing a book a year. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try this planning thing that people are talking about, this plotting thing. I discovered plotting is really fun. It is very easy to just like plot forever and plan forever. So now I try and limit what I'll do. So I'll kind of come up with an idea, I'll kind of like do a base plan, plot, kind of give myself some tent poles, and then I write a zero draft, which is sort of like pantsing. And then I go back and then I go back and I fill in the parts that were stumping me and slowing me down. And so I did a zero draft in NaNoWriMo, polished that book at the first half of this year. I'm doing now I'm doing draft 1. I've done a zero draft of this novel I'm writing, which doesn't have a title. My goal is to have it done and to my editor, which is M. Bennett, before NaNoWriMo, and then I'm going to write a crime novel because I haven't done that yet. And nice. I like writing things I haven't done. But when I've been writing, I'm digressing. Why have I read it with a collaborating? I have, but because I was very much of a pantser, I would frustrate them because I didn't want to plan, I didn't want to plot, and I'm quite prolific, so I would just write like crazy. And I actually wrote an entire screenplay that I was supposed to collaborate with a friend on, but she was so slow at writing, I just wrote the whole thing, and then she got really mad at me. So it's just like, you didn't wait for me, and I'm like, yeah, well, you were taking a long time.
You know, your journey to sort of honing your writing technique, your craft. You know, you started out a pantser, you overcorrected with too much plotting, and then you kind of found the happy middle. I hear that a lot from pantsers, and I experienced it myself. I was never really a full on pantser, but I definitely had to find that sweet spot between pantsing and plotting, because you want to be prepared, you want to know where you're going, you want to have done your your prep work, but you also don't want to take all the fun out of writing. You don't want to like write the whole thing in the planning stage and then sit down to write and find that you're just rewriting the same thing all over again. Like it would be, especially for pantsers, that can be very boring, and they just want to discover something new and write something new.
Yeah.
So having the tent poles, that's something that I do as well. So having these tent pole moments, I know I have to get from where the character is here to where the character is going to be over there. How I get there, I'm going to discover as I write, but I need to get it there. That's where I'm going. So like, yeah, like I get that.
Yeah.
All right. Now, the interesting thing is that with most of these questions, you have answered other questions in the question that I asked originally. So, like, I'm like, oh,
I don't talk this much on my podcast.
Yeah, that's what exactly. That's what happens when you come on as an interviewee. You get to talk and hit all the different notes. Okay, so I know that this is not a big thing for you anymore, but I wanted to at least touch on it for at least a while there. You had something going on called Every Story My Story. It's still very prominent on your website. I understand that you're trying to focus on your podcast now, and we're going to talk about your podcast next before we wrap up. But I wanted us to talk about maybe lessons learned along the way. What was this project that you were trying to do with Every Story My Story? If I remember correctly, 1,000 published by 2025 was the goal. Where did that come from? What happened? Tell me a little bit about Every Story My Story.
It's still the goal. So Every Story My Story was actually when I got into so I have a background in marketing, and I decided during COVID that in attempts to try and get my child to like reading and writing, which is actually why I wrote the Thing of the Stuff. I wanted, when I was growing up, I'm dyslexic. When I was growing up, there was no books about me. And I thought, you know what? wouldn't it be great if kids could write their own books? So I started this business that where kids could write their own books. Apparently, I'm the only person in the world who thinks that's a good idea. Because nobody came to the party, and that was called Every Story My Story. So then I shifted to helping. I shifted to coaching and helping parents bring their kids along on their dreams, because I was seeing a lot of parents who were giving up on their dreams because they had kids. One mother said to me, I think I went for a massage. She's like, "Oh, I'd love to have a massage." And I'm like, "Well, go get a massage." And she's like, "No, I will when my kid is 18. Her kid was like 2. I'm like, "Seriously? You're going to wait 16 years to have a massage?" Like, I'm like, I just took a week off to go write. It is not the first time that I have left my child to go focus on my writing dream. So I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why are parents, specifically mothers, doing this? Putting their self aside for 18 years. I feel like that's ridiculous. So I started coaching people, and I helped a few people out. I got some good feedback. But I don't like coaching, I found out.
It's very emotionally draining. It takes a very specific kind of person to love coaching.
Yeah. Well, there's also a lot of you have to help people that know they want help, know they need help, but don't necessarily want to do it. And I found that a little bit frustrating. So I decided, well, I've learned that I don't want to do that. So then I shifted my so actually and at the time also my daughter had taken over my YouTube channel. So that's there's a YouTube channel on here called Joan Van, and that was that original Every Story My Story YouTube channel, which VN turned into there's a bunch of podcasts and stuff that she's done, and I don't know, we may see more from VN. She's getting interested again, but she had lost interest. And then I started this channel, which is my Pantser to Planner channel. And then I kind of went, well, why are people watching? Why do they care? They don't really care about my journey about being a pantser to planner. Pantsers are happy to be pantsers. Planners already know how to plan. They don't need to know for me. So this is nobody's watching. And I thought, well, what do artists want? They want to get published. I'm like, so do I. Maybe instead of focusing on my own journey of getting published, I will help other people, because maybe that's my role in life. And so I'll kind of share, and I won't be a gatekeeper. If I find any kind of things, I'll share it. And so that was what I started. And I think that's at the beginning of this year. And then along that journey, I went, I'm getting really frustrated because I still want to get published. And I was like, I would really like to find out what I'm doing wrong. And then I realized that I have a lot of friends in the industry, and I know a lot of people. After 30 years, I know a lot of people. And I thought, maybe it's a good time for a podcast. So the goal is still the same, but the business name has changed because because I didn't want to renew it, honestly. That's why it's changed. So it was up for renewal this year, and I'm like, it doesn't fit the goal anymore. So because it's not about sharing our stories. Yeah. So now it's about the publishing path. So the goal is the same. Yes, I want to see 1,000 new writers published, because I have a bookstore, as I've said, and there are holes in the bookstore. And the holes are stories by people who are telling stories that aren't, like I said, when I was a kid, I was dyslexic, and the girls in the books were always really pretty or really smart. And when you're dyslexic, you don't feel really smart. Like that, I'm not saying dyslexics are dumb. I score high on a lot of things, but you feel dumb because you can't do something basic that everybody else seems to be able to do, which is decoding. And it's really frustrating, and you don't have words for it. And I wanted to see that, which is why I wrote The Thing with Stuff, because I wanted a book out there about a kid that Sailor's superpower is that they are dyslexic, and that they see the world differently. And I didn't intend them when Sailor started a girl. No, actually, Sailor started a boy named Simon in 2014. And then I decided there are a lot of books about boys that are dyslexic and no girls. So then I changed Simon to Sailor, made her a girl. And through doing that, realized that I have accidentally, and much to my joy, created a trans child. So,
Oh, there you go.
which,
yeah.
because you can't just change the name of a character and decide that a little boy becomes a little girl. So they became trans. And it all kind of just started from the fact that I went, okay, like there are actually some books in this, like now, not when I was a kid, but now there are books about boys that are dyslexic but no girls, because it's different when you're a girl, or when you're trans. It's different because all the tests have been done on boys, almost, or traditionally. They might not now. So they don't necessarily, they find this with autism as well, and that they do all these like not experiments, but it sounds like they're, it's a Stephen King novel, but they do the work with little, they don't do the work with, or that traditionally, I think they're getting more like into it now, but like traditionally when they started studying neural divergencies, they studied boys, they didn't study girls, and it presents different.
My son recently got diagnosed with autism and ADHD. My wife is very late in her life now realizing that she's probably autistic. I'm very late in my life now realizing that I'm ADHD. So we're all just kind of neurodivergent in the family, like making more neurodivergent people. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
For your podcast, you said that you already have like 12 episodes lined up, in your backlog. What is booking guests like? What kind of people do you have coming up? What can people look forward to on your podcast?
Oh, super, super exciting. So I've spoken to people all over the world. So coming up in the next 3 weeks, I'm speaking to Danuka McKenzie, who is a Australian crime novelist. She won the Banjo Prize from HarperCollins in 2020. Her second book, Taken, came out this year. She's got another book coming up. Following that, I'm talking to Laurie Steed, who had a really interesting journey. His first book, You Belong Here, came out in 2017, and then his publishing house closed, and he had to start all over again. And his memoir, Love, Dad, came out in August, and he's got another book of short stories coming out in January. So each of those books had a very different journey, and that is coming up a fortnight or a week and a half from now. So I drop my episodes. I drop my episodes on at 6 a.m. local time, which will be probably Friday afternoon, Friday night. Yeah, 6 a.m. will be. So the time of this podcast is the same time I drop them. So, or the time of this episode. So 4 p.m. where you are would be when they drop on Friday. That's strategic. I try to drop them at a time when everybody's up. So they're up in the UK, they're up in the States, and they're up in Canada, and they're up here in Australia as well.
It's that dead center of like the circle graphs, right?
Yeah, it's like the only time when everybody's kind of awake. 6 a.m. And they're scheduled, so I don't have to be, which is nice. I will be though this Saturday because I have to work. But anyway, and then the following week, I'm speaking to an American called Erica Green. She is one of the co-founders of the Iceland Writers Retreat that I was lucky enough to win an award to go to right before COVID, and then I got to go in 2022. And she is also an industry insider, editor, publisher. She's now working as a sort of a business to business expert to get nonfiction children's books published. So she kind of pitches a series or something to a publisher, and then she gets the writers and does all the book making things and gets it out there. So it's very, very interesting. Very interesting what's happening in the publishing world, because the traditional publishing houses are gobbling each other up, and there is kind of and they don't have a lot of people, so they're outsourcing a lot of the stuff that used to be done in-house. So I'm also going to be speaking to Kit from the Manuscript Appraisal Agency here in Australia. She's here in the Blue Mountains, another industry insider, and she does she not only helps writers with editing their work and mentorships and appraisals and that sort of thing, but she also will do editing for publishing houses. So their publishing houses are now outsourcing their editing to companies, and I just find this all very fascinating.
Yeah,
so that's all
wild.
coming out. Yeah. And how I get people is right now I'm just emailing my friends and contacts and people that
That's how it starts.
I have met along the way, because I've been to a lot of retreats and I've been to a lot of events. So contacting them, and I've worked with people. And now my husband's on board, so he's going to be reaching out to some of the authors he knows through the bookshop. Eventually, I will have to cold call people. Somebody on my channel recently asked me to collab with R.L. Stine. So I was like, okay, why not? So I dropped R.L. Stine a DM. So if you want R.L. Stine on my podcast, go drop him some messages. Maybe he'll actually answer me. I don't really expect him to come back, but that was a request. And I do listen to my my followers. I've got a small follower base. Hopefully it'll grow, but I do listen, and I listen enough, and I'm not crazy. Not crazy. I have more guts than brains.
I like it. All right, so we're gonna start wrapping it up here. I have so many more questions for you, but we'll get to them during the green room. For everybody watching this at home or on the replay, the green room airs on Friday, probably around 11 a.m. It's gonna be pre-recorded today. It's just gonna be Joe and I sitting around chit-chatting, talking without you guys. So thanks for coming to the live show. All right, now before we go, I do want to do this drawing. We at least got 2 people asking questions. That's enough to at least do a fair drawing, I guess. So let's do this. The idea is that I'm not seeing as much chat involvement in my episodes lately, and I'm trying to get you guys psyched and excited about this. So I'm giving away one of my books today, a copy of one of my books. You would think that I would have one handy that I can. Here we go. So I'm giving away a copy of this bad boy, Mythic: Shadow of the Spark. It is my debut novel. It is a murder mystery set in a sci-fi fantasy world, the start of an epic series, and a signed copy is going to one very lucky person right now. Only better not pick me, because that would be annoying. Don't do it. Yay! We got some. Okay, cool. We got here JG Brown. All right, so that was Miss Jennifer Brown for her question. So, Jennifer, congratulations. Send me an email at
Yay.
booksbyadrian@gmail.com. I'm going to write it in the banner here in a minute. And I'll be able to ship you a copy. Just send me your shipping address. I'm going to put the booksbyadrian@gmail.com. All right. So it is now up on the screen. Send me an email there with your shipping address, and I will mail you a copy, signed, personalized. You're getting your congratulations. You are. Thank you for all your questions, Felicia. That was excellent. Thank you very, very much. For all of you who watch, thank you for being here. Anybody watching this on the replay, leave a comment down below with how much you want to read. What was it? The this about the stuff.
The thing of the stuff. The thing
The
of the
thing of the
stuff.
stuff. It's such a great title too. The thing of the stuff. I want to read it.
Thank
All right.
you. Thank you.
All right.
And tag me because I do read every single comment that I am tagged in. So do
Put 'em down
tag
below,
me
yes.
and I will read and I will reply, and it will not be a template reply or just like I actually really do appreciate y'all being here.
Hopefully, we'll see the thing of the stuff and your other novels. Good luck getting R.L. Stine on your podcast.
yeah, and go message R.L. Stine and say he needs to be on my podcast. About like 2-episode podcast, like totally more guts than brains.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. There's a link to my newsletter down below. Joe's links are all down below. Please go support her on her platforms and everything she does. We didn't even get to talking about Patreon and all the other things that she does. She's everywhere, so go check out her stuff. Green Room is on Friday. Tuber Book Club is on Tuesday. Write on Writers, and we are out. Bye.